Now then, we're talking tournament and international football in part two. And the man I'd like to summon from the changing room, Mr. Emile Heskey. Emile, I'm intrigued about this year's Euros. Obviously, these are strange times we live in, particularly COVID having the impact it's had. We've had a truncated season. We've had little pre-season preparation in the summer of 2020. Now we're leading off the end of a busy campaign, going straight into an international tournament. To what extent is fatigue going to play a part in this summer's tournament? How will the players be preparing, and how would you be dealing with that factor if you were preparing to pull on the England shirt this summer?
If you're talking about fatigue, we've got to understand fatigue. Is it mental fatigue or physical fatigue? I wouldn't say physical fatigue. That'd be deterred, but that'd be fine. It's more mental. They've come out of a strange season. No fans, which is like training ground games, tough. And then you're coming out of no pre-season as well. So no pre-season is very, very tough. You've got to remember they were going into pre-season and they're having to come back in fours. And you're not having your team around you to really push you on. So there's that. And then you've seen the ups and downs of the season as well, with the likes of when you're looking at, we'll talk about the Premier League, when you're talking about West Ham having a fabulous season, pushing the top four, pushing for top four. Villa as well were in and around there after the season that they were struggling when they first came up, and now look at what they're actually achieving now. So physical is not a problem. I think it's more mental. We used to have, I'll tell you how it went. We used to have like a week off after the season, so you actually go away with your family, have that time off, switch off, and then you come back into camp and you're training again. Then you have like a mini pre-season to get you going again, and that could be very, very tough because again, no one really likes pre-season, so no one really likes all that running. But you're getting yourself ready for that actual tournament, and you've got to physically and well, more mentally get yourself ready for the games that are in hand, and the games are going to come thick and fast. But you're in there for a reason, because you're the best and you want to be the best. So you're obviously pushing yourself and challenging yourself to be the best, and that's where you see who are the best in the group and who are the best in the tournament.
You did that repeatedly. You won 62 England caps. That takes some doing, I would suggest. Just cast your mind back. How did the call come? Because in this age of modern communication, you can get a knock on the door, you can get a fax, you can get an email, you can get a text message, somebody might phone you up. The very first time it came, a young Emile Heskey, just bring us back to that moment what was the method of communication?
I'm showing my age now. It would have been fax. Fax to the club. And then
where were you at that time? Which club were you in?
Leicester City, and it'll be faxed to Leicester City, and they would let you know that you've been called up, when the dates are, and then you'd get a letter. You'd get the letter, and you'd go through the letter and tell all your family. But then, obviously, over the years, I was lucky enough to go from 2000 to 2010. I went to the Euro 2000, then I went to the World Cup 2010, and then obviously things would change. You'd get a phone call or a text message first and foremost before it's all put out. And obviously you've got to keep it under wraps and not tell anyone to leak it out. So you'd know already that you're involved, etc. I'll give you a story where I was out of the actual the system for a while. I wasn't in the actual squads, etc. And Steve McLaren rang me up, but the lads all know that when you get a phone call from a manager, you don't know if it's actually the manager or someone pranking you, one of the lads. So I was actually going to hang up on him, and I'm saying, he goes, "Oh, hi Emile, it's Steve." I went, "Yeah, hi Steve." And he went, "Oh, it's Steve McLaren." I went, "Yeah, hi Steve." Because I thought it was one of the lads. I was at Wigan and I thought it was one of the lads playing games. Then he started talking and I'm like listening. I'm saying, "Yeah, whatever." And then he started telling me about Michael. I'm like, "Oh, this might actually be Steve McLaren." And it was. And he was calling me back into the squad. And I'd been out of the squad for 4 years. So imagine if I hung up on him. I don't think I would have got back in again.
Sending the England manager away with a flea in his ear. Unbelievable. Talk to me about, so when that call-up came, that very first call-up, just sticking with that theme, how did you feel? And what's the very first thing you did privately? Did you ring your mum? Did you ring your girlfriend? Did you just pump your fist and think, oh, that's it? I mean, what an accolade to actually, for all the sacrifice, for all the focus and determination and dedication as a young person, not going out doing the thing that people do, partying and drinking, because that really is, to get to that elite level is something very, very special. And surely the first time, the actual sort of pent up desire to get to that level, how did you react? Can you take us back to that moment?
If I'm going to be honest, it wasn't one of the ones that you mentioned there. I rang my mum and dad, went home, spoke to them, and just told them that I was involved in I've been called up, etc. It's funny because it's hard to explain. So I'd played from 16s all the way through. So it was the natural progression, and I was playing first team football. So it was kind of something that I knew that was coming at some stage. So I was prepared for it. And I was more thinking, I wasn't really thinking about the actual, the phone call. I was more thinking about, I'm going to be seeing Ian Wright. I'm going to be seeing Les Ferdinand. I'm going to kick this person. I'm going to shoulder barge that defender. Me and Sol are going to have a real good tussle. So these are the things that I'm actually worrying about, not about the actual call up and this excitement. I'm more excited about who can I bully, who can I shoulder barge and push off the ball. Yeah. They're the things that I'm more thinking about. And then can I dink this goalkeeper? Can I take a penalty against? They're more the things that I'm thinking about, because I'd already actually played from the like I said, from 16s all the way to that time, the 21s. The next step was actually the first team. So I was actually very prepared for it.
Oh, listen, that's wonderful insight. I love football, and maybe that's what separates an elite athlete and somebody who goes to that level, who just takes it in their stride and actually says, well, I belong here and I'm going to go and show it. So that is a really fantastic answer. Just one more on this theme, because I'll bring the lads in, and you talk about prank calls. I can't imagine that Alan McInally would ever do such a thing. However, when you found the back of the net for England, that in itself, okay, you scored a hatful of goals wherever you went, and that's why fans loved you. But to find the net for England in a major tournament, wow.
To actually go to a tournament and then eventually score, the euphoria, and then have players jumping on your back as well. Oh, it's amazing, absolutely amazing feeling. And to have that memory to cherish for life is great. And then for your kids and your grandkids eventually to see that you've done that. Yeah, amazing feeling.
Great answers, Emile. Thank you for now. Mr. Alan McInally, fresh from trying to bankrupt our sponsors with your charity bet for Headway, let's take you back in the day to preparing for a major international game. You're there. Obviously, there's weight, there's expectation. There's a very, very proud and football crazy nation like Scotland. They know that Alan McInally is in danger of starting up front for them. They're thinking, hey, we've got a chance here. Listen, we might be a small country, but we've got quality. Take me back to representing your country for the first time, pulling on that jersey and walking out in front of those, in a good way, crazy fans. You know they're going to be vocal. You know they're going to be absolutely up for it. You don't want to disappoint them. There's pressure there, but surely there must be adrenaline, bit of butterflies, a lot of excitement.
You need to have all them, but you need to use it to your best advantage. I mean, I came late to the party because even when I was at Celtic, the likes of Maurice Johnson and Frank McAvenny, and even it was just really after sort of Dalglish and Rush, the Dalglish days was really when I got in, and I didn't get into the Scotland team until I was at Aston Villa. And I got the letter and I phoned my dad, and nobody was happy because my father was a football player as well, but he didn't get to represent Scotland. And the first thing I used to think about my grandfather. My grandfather used to take me to the games as well. And I kind of thought about him a little bit, as well as the excitement of actually thinking, well, I'm going to, and the guys will know this, it was actually, when I think back, one of the most amazing times was the World Cup, regardless of, staying down on the Ayrshire coast and then travelling by bus to Glasgow to Hampden. And the bus can't get into the ground because there's 60,000, 70,000 people. And you've got a bike behind, a bike in front, and a police motorbike away ahead, you know, and they're all changing. And the excitement of even thinking you're going to play for Scotland and going to Hampden it was just amazing. I mean, it was incredible. But you've got to really grip that and say, the reason I'm here is because I'm going to do this. And the guys, thankfully, for the lads, had a much longer international career than I had, because I unfortunately got injured and then I only played, like 9-10 games. But even those alone were, and to be involved in a World Cup was just, it's hard to describe, because you think of friends, you think of certainly family, but it was going to the games and realising, everybody knows the Tartan Army, but when you actually look out the window and you see everybody and you think, oh my God, it's the Tartan Army.
Your dad, Jackie, was a legend. He won the league title in Scotland with Kilmarnock, no less. Everybody in that part of Scotland, and your words, not mine, I listened to you in an interview saying everybody knew Jackie McInally. I was fortunate to get the genes. Now, eventually, you improve, you mature, your confidence grows, you start hitting a lot of goals, whereupon you find yourself in the international squad. Was that, in some ways, given what you had to try and emulate, the standards you had to try and live up to, was that a natural fulfillment? Or, Alan, was it actually a relief to get to that level, given the weight of expectation behind you as a young player?
No, not a relief. I suppose the lads will know this as well. I think everybody expected me to be a football player because of my dad. I mean, the good thing is, every time I go back to Scotland, everybody says, you'll never be as good as your father. And I'm like, well, obviously not. He's my dad. I'm never going to be as good as my dad, am I? So you have to put up with the when you come from Scotland and you do okay, don't expect to get a pat in the back, because they're all going to bring you down a little bit. But there was an expectancy of me probably to be a football player because of dad. And then obviously getting to the level I got to was just, I expected it. The lads tell you, you work so hard. You dedicate yourself to, your mates are going out on a Friday night, you're like, I can remember when I was at Ayr United, I was 18, 19 years old, and I was sitting in the house, and my old man had been at golf or something. He came back, he went, what are you doing? I said, I'm not doing anything. He went, exactly, out, go for a run, take the dog down the beach. Yeah. And I was like, I'm 18, young man. I was like, he went, out, go, get your gear on, because I was still living at home, down the beach, do some runs, and I'd be hitting the ball into the sleepers down the train line at 9:30, 9 o'clock at night, using the lights off the railway, because you couldn't see this back in the day, for God's sake. It's 40 years ago. And I always look back to that thinking, I wonder if that gave me advantage on some of the times on a Saturday afternoon when players were getting tired and I was getting stronger. So in terms of his, do you want to be a football player? Well, yeah, do something about it. And I did. And thankfully I got to a position where, I can do this, put this on and think, yep, those really were the days. They really were the days. I mean, they really were. It was just unbelievable. And unfortunately for me, of course, getting injured curtailed my career. But in terms of having the opportunity to play for your country, I'm telling you now, there is nothing better. Rushy scored at the top end, I scored at the top end, and Emile scored at the top end. But when you pull on that Scotland shirt, England shirt, Wales shirt, you can do anything.
The cap fits you well, sir. Final question on this section. We talk particularly about the element of fatigue. You said other players were tiring in games. You were getting stronger. Emile gave us a brilliant answer about the season that's been. Is it physical fatigue? Is it mental fatigue? However, when you come into this tournament, at the very, very front of this programme, you yourself gave us a great answer, and you said, I don't think there's going to be a big upset. Belgium, Spain, perhaps France. And yet, doesn't the fact, just playing devil's advocate with you for 1 second, I know you've given your opinion, but I just want to throw it back across the net at you. Doesn't the fact that you've got teams coming in here who've had brutal hard schedules, physically and mentally, not opened the door, at least just a crack, to suggest that we could get another shock result? Greece in 2004 were 100-1. Nobody in the world, not even people in Greece, Greece brought great support that tournament. I was in Portugal. I went to both the semi-finals, and you're watching, they couldn't believe it. They were in absolute dreamland. Didn't they go and win it? Surely there has to be at least a sporting, playful chance that something very odd is going to happen. These guys are not machines. They're athletes. They can't just go and go and go.
No, you're right. I mean, it'd be nice if there was another country that had an Otto Rehagel that actually took Greece to that title. That'd be unbelievable. I just think these lads at the top end are just extraordinarily good. We spoke, briefly about Lukaku, Mbappe, Griezmann, Immobile, Memphis Depay, all these ones that are expected to do well, including England, incidentally, and I throw in Foden and Kane and Grealish and Mount. And it has been a difficult season. I mean, you've already seen what we have seen, Lee, actually, is the fact that there's been injuries towards the end of the season. And there's not just England and Scotland, but we are waiting for, another 10 days to see if someone's going to be fit to play in it. I think the mental fatigue, I think the boys will be okay, because I think they've got a little space between times to get themselves ready to rock and roll. And once it starts, your adrenaline pulls you through anyway. It's your injuries you don't want to get. But, I mean, you're right, Emile did speak about a fatigue. There isn't that domestic game to get to the end. But when you get the letter or the text or whatever, and somebody says you're playing for your country, trust me, you'll get a little jag of energy to try and get you to a position where you want to just be starting, not just in the squad.
Great answer. On we go. Thanks for now, Alan. On we go to you, Ian. Can I ask you this and frame it this way, if I may? You obviously had this astonishing record of goal scoring and appearances for Liverpool Football Club. However, was it equally good or perhaps even better when you pulled on the red jersey of Wales?
I think you've come to me last year on purpose, haven't I? Because I haven't qualified for major tournaments. No, but I think, I think you're right. When you pull on that jersey, my first time was actually made my debut against Scotland in 1981, and I couldn't believe it. It was absolutely. I'm so proud. My dad being a very, very big Welshman and everything, to represent your country for your first time was something special. So Mike England was the manager, and I think Ian Walsh got injured, and I remember getting warmed up, and I didn't know how to warm up. And Kevin Ratcliffe was on the bench saying, "Look as if you're interested." So I just wanted to get on the pitch, and I just went on the pitch, and it was absolutely great to say. I've actually say now I played for my country. It's something really, really special. And again, it was completely different to Liverpool. Liverpool, I would have maybe 5 or 6 chances, where Wales maybe only 1 or 2 chances. And that was the difference. I had to take my chances for Wales, because when I played for Liverpool, I know I'd have 3 or 4 or 5 chances. Where Wales was different. It was a lot harder. And funny enough, in a lot of the times, as the lads will tell you, some of the club managers didn't want you to go and represent your country because you could get injured. Because every time I come back, they said I'd been working so hard, I was no good for Liverpool the following Saturday. And they were trying to say, "Oh no, don't go say that you're injured." But I was so proud of being a Welshman. Every time I could, I turned up for my country.
Well, you absolutely did, because you're very modest as well, Ian. You scored 28 goals for Wales, which for a team that didn't thrive upon creating chances for you is an astonishing record, really, and puts you second to Gareth Bale in the international Welsh goal scoring ranks. So that in itself is some achievement. Same question I touched upon both with Emile and Alan. Going back to 1980, what was it? Smoke signals, carrier pigeon? How did you find out that call-up was coming? Because I love this idea that football must be the only industry in the universe where fax machines are still relied upon. You hear about, for example, the famous David De Gea non-transfer to Madrid in 2015. In what other circumstance do you still have these antiquated faxes going around? How did you find out that you were actually going to be selected to play for Wales?
Well, there wasn't fax machines in my days then, was there? So I think it was me. Really, I got told, it was the newspapers, really. They were the ones telling me, they said, I was playing for Chester. And I'm actually made my debut for Wales before Liverpool. So I was at Chester, and Mike England, the Welsh manager, came to watch me. and a few of the press there were saying, "Oh, he's going to put you in the squad and everything." And it was just after the game, he came down to see me in the dressing room. He said, "I'm going to put you in the squad for Wales." You know, so Mike England was the one when I was playing for Chester after the game came and told me.